Hey, my name's Ronald. I've been doing youth ministry for 16 years, and I'm creating a video right now talking about how to ask volunteers to be a part of your youth ministry. And so let's dive in. Okay, so now it's time to make the ask. You've got your list of hopefully a couple dozen volunteers of people you could potentially ask. Here's what you need as a youth pastor when you make the ask. First off, and this is not on the list, but it's important to know, don't say no for someone. Asking people gives them the opportunity to pray about it, to respond, and to let you know, yes or no, I can be a volunteer. Don't tell someone, no, they can't be a volunteer for them. Let them come up with that. If you're looking at somebody and you're going, they look really busy, I don't know if they like students, I don't know if they really enjoy student ministry or the church or whatever, don't go ahead and decide for them they can't be youth ministry volunteers. Let them pray about it. Let them decide. Because if you go ahead and say no for them and don't ask them, you've missed out on the opportunity. Again, there are some times when you as a youth pastor, using the discretion God's given you, have just had like a gut feeling, I don't think they should be a youth ministry volunteer. I say, go with your gut feeling. That is fine. But don't they look too busy. I don't know if they want to be in student ministry. I don't know if they like students. Be the reason you don't ask someone to be a part of the ministry. Okay, what does making the ask look like? Well, first and foremost, ask them to a specific role. Actually know the task you want the volunteer to do. What is it you're asking them to do? Because if you just ask the volunteer to be like, hey, can you come into the ministry and just be like a warm body? Like just be present in the room and just like hang out with students while I'm teaching. That would be great. You're not going to keep volunteers very much because honestly, what you have asked them to do is show up and sit in the youth room or youth space or what have you and just be there. It's really, really hard to ask someone to do something where the goal is just like show up and be present. That's chaperoning, right? When you chaperone a field trip, your job is to count heads and make sure nobody runs off. It's not very fulfilling. It doesn't really encourage a person to actually volunteer. But if you know, hey, parent, I've got an idea. I really want someone to be in charge of welcoming students when they come into the youth ministry area. I want someone who's there and can be a greeter, can offer a smiling face, can shake the hand or give a high five to every kid who walks in, just so they can feel like they belong and they are a part of it. And I need a parent or a volunteer who's really just going to lead the charge and make sure that every student gets greeted and welcomed as soon as they come into the youth ministry space. Is that a role you think you could do for me? That changes everything with how you ask a parent or potential volunteer to come onto your team. You're giving them a specific role. Maybe you're asking them to be a small group leader. Maybe you're asking them to help out with the tech in the background or games when you're doing large group, or to be someone who is encouraging other adults on your team, which we'll talk about that in a second. Whenever you have the ask, make sure you are asking them to a specific role. Meaning it might be a good exercise for you, the youth pastor, to write out everything you have specific roles for and what a parent would do. Because when you give and volunteer a specific role, you make their task winnable, which is huge. They can leave youth ministry and know, I did a good job because I won. I did the thing I was supposed to do today. Ronald asked me to be a greeter, and I greeted every single student who walked in. I gave them a piece of candy, gave them a high five, asked them how their week was, because Ronald told me to. That was my role. I did a good job because I won. And it helps you as a youth pastor also say, hey, Karen, I noticed you were on your phone the entire time students were walking in, and you didn't say hey to anybody. Remember that role I asked you to do? I need you to do that role, not be on your phone. It really helps you both understand what you're getting that volunteer to do. And then once that volunteer's on your team, it helps them know, okay, I did the thing I was asked to do. It's huge when you ask them to do a specific role. Okay, so this is great. Set what? The next thing that you're going to ask a volunteer to do is to give you a set time. Give them a set time to serve in the youth ministry. When I was doing youth ministry at my last church, I always asked volunteers, hey, can you give me the school year? I want you to give me 1 year with students, fall and spring, beginning of school, end of school. That's what I need from you. When you give them a set time, you know and they know you're not asking them to volunteer eternally. And that can be really, really tough for a youth ministry volunteer when they're just like, well, I guess I'm just gonna do this forever. No, you're saying, hey, I want you to set this time aside for your time as a youth ministry volunteer. Now, people do this differently. Some people ask for 1 year, which is usually a low bar, and most people can do it. Some people might ask for 3 to 4 years, meaning, hey, if you're coming in as a middle school volunteer, I want you to commit to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade with your students. And I just want you to follow these students for that set time, for their middle school career, or with high school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, those 4 years. That's also a possibility. And I do know some ministries that ask volunteers to serve for 6 to 7 years. They go ahead and commit and they say, hey, we want you to serve this whole way, all the way through from 6th grade all the way up to 12th grade. No matter which one of these you choose, understand that this is going to be the easiest, this is going to be a little more difficult, and this one right here is going to be really, really hard. However, you and your volunteer, the potential volunteer, will know exactly what they're signing up for because you made clear this is the set time I want you to volunteer for, all right? And this is what's going on. And then number 3, I want you to be very clear about church policies up front with potential volunteers. You want them to know the guardrails, the boundaries. If your church says, hey, a parent or an adult cannot text a student, you need to make sure those adults know that up front. You might even give them a link when you're making that original ask and say, hey, these are the church policies right here of everything that we're going to need you to do. We need you to do a background check. We need you to agree not to be with the student by themselves, and we need to agree, whatever else the church policies are, and set them up for that, just so that they know, hey, okay, I'm working with minors. That's a big deal. These are the guardrails. And then you and the volunteer can both know, this is what I agreed to, these church policies. It might even be good to have a volunteer read over the church doctrinal statement, and make sure that they agree with what the church teaches. Some people just go to church at a place because it's where the friends go, it's where they feel comfortable, and they may not know everything that the church believes. Once they start serving, they need to know, oh, okay, this is what our church believes about salvation, the Bible, Jesus, the end times, what have you. Some type of conversation about this is really important. And then last, and depending on where you think this actually ends up, I really want you to be cognizant to share the vision that you have for the youth ministry. Share the vision with what you do as a youth ministry, why you do things as a youth ministry. Because when you're making the ask up here, you're inviting someone into the ministry that God's put you in charge of. You have a vision for the ministry. You probably should. If you don't, and you need to work through that, you can actually look down below in the comments or in the description of the video. There's a link for the 30-day Youth Pastor Challenge, and the very first week of the 30-day challenge is all about setting the vision statement for you personally, the ministry, and the church. It's an incredibly helpful exercise that'll help you understand why you do what you do and what it's supposed to look like. So share the vision when you're making the ask. Invite them into the grander vision that you have for the youth ministry so that they know they're not just being asked to chaperone students or be a warm body. You are inviting them to take part in the vision of the youth ministry. It's a big deal and can help people understand that they are serving to something bigger than themselves. All right. Once you make this ask, just give them the opportunity to pray about it and say, hey, I'd love for you to pray about knowing this since you know the role, you know for how long, you know the church policies and the youth ministry vision. I'd love to follow up with you in a week. And then actually do that. Call them, text them, whatever it is, and say, hey, just pray about it for a week. I'll call you and we'll follow up and see what you think about it. This gives them an opportunity to actually look over it, to pray about it, to talk with their spouse or their family. Gives you a chance to continue to vet them and say, hey, I'm going to ask for this person to be on the team. In fact, a really great thing for you to be able to say is after you have done all this here, you can say, all right, I'm going to take a week, you take a week, we're both going to pray about it, and in a week we'll let each other know where we've come to. It's a big deal and really important. And then not last, but importantly here, you might just ask them, hey, I just want to know your testimony. Give me your 30-second, 1-minute testimony. When you met Jesus, life before Jesus, why you're in church. That way you're not recruiting someone who happens to go to church but may not be a believer. It's always extremely good to ask that question so that you can both be on the same page. All right, make the ask. Really important. Hey, thanks so much for watching that. I hope that was helpful to you. Next time, we're going to talk about how to keep your volunteers. I hope that is a helpful thing to you. And remember, if you are liking these videos, do me a favor, like and subscribe down below, and sign up to my email list so that you can be notified every single time I release a video, as well as get a little blog type summary of it as well. So I hope that's useful to you. Thank you so much for watching. And this, remember, Ronald's big volunteer strategy. Hooray!